So, yeah. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the August 11th, 2025 meeting of Missoula City Council. It's my honor to welcome everybody here. Before we get started with our agenda, if you will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. All right. Thank you very much, and welcome to a fair number of members of the Missoula Fire Department that are here to celebrate confirmation for several of your colleagues this evening, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But before we do that, we have Haley Wilding that is running the show in the back for our meeting this evening. So, Miss Wilding, would you please do a roll call for our attendance, please?
Hi, yes, roll call for City Council, August 11th, starting with Stacy Anderson.
Present.
Mirtha Becerra.
Present.
Bob Campbell.
Here.
Daniel Carlino.
Present.
Sierra Farmer.
Present.
Gwen Jones.
Present.
Kristen Jordan.
Present.
Eric Melson.
Present.
Mike Nugent.
Present.
Jennifer Savage.
Present.
Amber Sherrill.
Present.
Sandra Visica.
Present.
We have quorum. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. We do have one set of minutes for your consideration this evening. They're from last week, August 4th, 2025. Any changes or questions on those minutes before we accept those? I'm not seeing any in the room. Any questions or concerns from council members in regards to the minutes online? Not seeing any, then those minutes will remain as submitted. Thank you. Oh, wait, actually, I think I did have one change. And it was just to note, if I'm not mistaken, that Mr. Bickle was present for that meeting. Let me just make sure. I had read these in a, now I can't remember. Give me 1 second here. We're good to go. Dale, are you normally noting the top of the minutes as administration present? Okay, we won't worry about it right now. Never mind. Thanks, everybody. Never mind. No big deal.
Claire Trimble, City Clerk. Dale Nichols not typically listed because he's not an officer.
Got you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Why I've not noticed that in the past, I don't know, but I noticed it this time, and thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, let's see. Next on our agenda, we have the committee schedule for August 13th, this coming Wednesday. Ms. Wilding, do we have any changes to this committee schedule for this Wednesday?
No changes, just noting that we do have an 8 a.m. start time.
Great. Thank you for that. Bright and early, 8 a.m. with budget and finance. All right. Excellent. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to our special presentations and proclamations. We do not have any of our neighborhood councils here to update us, but we do have a special presentation, which is the confirmation of 6 Missoula firefighters. And this is a recommended motion coming forward from committee. And we have Assistant Fire Chief John Petroff and Fire Chief Lonnie Rash here this evening. And I don't know if either of you wish to come up and speak. I do believe Chief Rash, you wish to come on up, so please come join us.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Lonnie Rash, Missoula Fire Department. Some of you may have already heard this part of it, but it is my pleasure to come before you tonight to recommend for confirmation 6 firefighters for the Missoula Fire Department who've completed their probationary year. This probationary period included initial recruit academy, map testing, dialing in their skills as fire and EMS professionals, and responding to the needs of our community. Plus, because of the hiring of these 12 or 20 of the 20 firefighters last fall and this spring, this group of firefighters had even more expectations placed on them due to the potential shortage of drivers, those that drive and operate the fire truck. So these folks actually went from an 18 to a 12-month driver-operator process, which they did quite well. This group was affectionately known, or is affectionately known as the Thurlow Six, which is named for their training officer who instructed their academy last year, and he's here in the room with us, freshly off an assignment from California. I also wanted to recognize all the members of the Missoula Fire Department for their mentorship and training. It really is a group effort to ensure that these firefighters are successful moving forward. And we really want to support you, or thank you and council for your support, and the community for support of the Missoula Fire Department. So, meeting the requirements of the MCA 733-4122, I proudly recommend confirmation firefighter John Deanna, firefighter Kristen Zavala, firefighter Denny Hazelton, who was not able to be here tonight, firefighter John Kaiser, firefighter John Mills, and firefighter Chris Shetler. And I will email you just a brief bio of them, so it's just kind of interesting data for them. So with that, I would introduce these new firefighters.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Chief Rash. Really appreciate that. Great summary. We're looking forward to learning a bit more about you when you share some bios. That's excellent. And quick question. Do we need this was approved in committee, normally would have gone through consent agenda, but we've basically pulled it off as a special business item this evening. And so I do believe we want to probably hear another motion from a council member. And Councilor Anderson, I know you're online, so you probably wish to make this motion.
Great. Thanks so much, Madam Mayor and Chief, for presenting those, and for the firefighters for joining us this evening, and for the other members of Missoula Fire Department coming to support them. So I am happy to move the recommended motion, which is to confirm these 6 officers as full-fledged members of Missoula Fire Department as they've completed their probationary year. And I'm happy to speak to it when the time is right.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilor Anderson. This is an opportunity for council members to ask any questions of Councilor Anderson or of Chief Rash. Any questions from council members? Okay. Not seeing any questions, then opportunity for public comment. This is an item that if there's any public comment this evening. Not seeing any members of the audience in the room. And I do see that we have our council members starting to raise their hands. So we'll go ahead and we will shift to council comment. And I'll go ahead and start with Councilor Nugent.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. I will just say welcome officially. I heard great things over the last year, and I want to thank you all for making this decision to join up with us, the city of Missoula, and make these sacrifices that I know all first responders make on their families, and the willingness to step up and help your fellow citizens in Missoula. So thank you all very much, and we appreciate it. Looking forward to great careers for all of you.
Thank you, Councilor Nugent. Councilor Sherrill.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to say the same thing. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for your service, your future service to our community, and we are really happy to have you all.
All right. Thank you, Councilor Sherrill. Councilor Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Welcome to Missoula for all of you. Welcome to the city of Missoula family. As firefighters, I'm sure, you're now part, realize of a larger family of the Missoula Fire Department as well. And I know folks do a great job of taking care of each other as brothers and sister firefighters, as was the case with me with the Missoula Police Department. But, welcome. I know we went through some rigorous training here. So that pays off not only for you all, but for the citizens of Missoula as well. So thank you very much for your service, and welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Campbell. Councilor Jones.
Just want to say thanks for bringing this in front of us. So I'm thrilled that we're at a position where we are swearing in firefighters. This community made a big decision when they passed the fire levy a year ago. 2 years?
A year ago.
A year ago, okay, a year ago, and made a big decision that They wanted the fire department to be strong and robust and responsive when needed, and I appreciate the community saying that. I think the fire department also did a really good job of communicating why it's so important, because you don't want to find out why it's so important after the fact. This is a very proactive stance, and I appreciate that, and I welcome you to the city.
Thank you, Councillor Jones and Councillor Jordan.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to you all for stepping up to be a frontline service provider in Missoula, Montana. We love living here, and I am really grateful to you all for being willing to help keep this town a place we all want to live. And I commend you all for passing, so thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your comments. I don't see any other council comment or hands raised. I'll add to the chorus of appreciation and thank you so much for choosing to be at the City of Missoula. We're just honored and delighted to have you here this evening, and of course, as part of our team here in the city and as part of our growing and forward-thinking Missoula Fire Department. You've joined an excellent team, and we're thrilled you're here. So thank you very much. And with that,
And Mayor, sorry to interrupt. I can't raise my hand online. I don't know what's going on. So,
I'm sorry. Yes, Councilor Anderson, I'm sorry. Yes, please go right ahead.
No problem. I did not mean to interrupt. I just wanted to obviously add my congratulations with my fellow council members. And I just want to take an opportunity to also acknowledge the training staff, the assistant chiefs, Keating and Petroff, and a new chief, Lonnie Rash. He is inheriting a really tremendous department, and these new firefighters are just the next wave of really amazing community members and first responders. And I didn't have the privilege of sitting on the interviews with this group, but I did all the ones that will be coming forward. And one of the questions I always ask is, how do you plan on integrating yourself within the community or family of the Missoula Fire Department, as well as larger community? And I can say that in this first year, I have seen most all of these new, the Thurlow 6, out at various community gatherings, events, going above and beyond. And so I just thank you so much for kind of understanding that it's not just the day-to-day service that you do on shift, but it's the larger commitment to the community. And I think that that has been very well demonstrated and sort of role modeled by those folks who have come before you. And I just know that you are joining one of the best fire departments in the region, and you will continue to serve us proudly. Thank you so much.
Councilor Anderson, thank you. And I do, you did ask to make comment. I'm so sorry that I just moved past you there as I was ready to move on to the voice vote, because I know that this passed unanimously at committee, and so I'll ask council to go ahead and provide the confirmation vote via voice vote, if that's all right.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
All right. Thanks again for being down. Congratulations. Absolutely. You bet. All right. That's a great way to start our meeting this evening. That wraps up our special presentations and proclamations, and we'll now move on to our public hearing portion of the City Council meeting this evening. And this is a continuation of our budget FY26 public hearing. So as you'll recall, we opened up the public hearing last Monday, August 4th. We're holding it open today, August 11th, and then we will be carrying over the public hearing until next Monday, August 18th, where we will then ask for a vote for approval for the budget that evening. We'll say this a few times to make sure folks track the process, but after tonight, we'll go ahead and hear remaining budget amendments on the floor on Wednesday, so during Budget and Finance in the morning. And then that is scheduled from 8 until noon. We may get through all of the amendments at that time, in which case your Budget and Finance Committee would conclude early, but just in case not, It's open for that period of time. And there's also a placeholder in the afternoon, just in case, to make sure there's adequate time for any budget deliberations. Councilor Cheryl?
Could I just add one thing to that?
Please do.
If you don't mind. We do have one item, the fee schedule, that's going to be in the afternoon unless that has changed. If you've heard anything that's going to change on that, okay. So we are going to have a meeting in the afternoon, even if we get done early in the morning, because they needed a little more time on that day to get things done.
I appreciate you
Just know
clarifying.
it should be, not the entire time, but we will need the afternoon meeting.
Thank you very much. Thanks for adding that. I appreciate that. Okay, with that, we have heard the motions. The motions are already on the floor, so this public hearing is already opened. We do have some additional detail from the staff to add in terms of new information that's come forward since receiving taxable numbers on the 4th of August, and then also from the conversation at committee on Wednesday. So I'll turn it over to Dale Bickle.
Thank you, Mayor. For the record, Dale Bickle, City's Chief Administrative Officer. Seems like my mic is working better than last time, right? Okay, that's great. I'm going to essentially make the same presentation I did last week, a little abbreviated, so it won't be too repetitive, but there is new information, particularly related to our taxable values and how those are incorporated into our budget. So I'll share my screen. And I think I'd see it popping up on schedules or on screen. So again, this mayor's budget brings a commitment to financial stability, responsible investment, and responsive public service. So really implemented a strong cost of living lens, even starting in last year. In the general fund, we are projected to save $2.4 million from the original FY25 budget. We are advancing our housing focus model, even in light of the difficult decision to close the Johnson Street Emergency Shelter. This budget includes a fair and competitive police compensation package that council just approved in recent weeks. We are a commitment to core services such as public works and adding 2 new street maintenance positioning, but instead of using road district and property taxes, we're able to use existing gas tax resources. And there are a number of infrastructure projects, particularly high profile infrastructure projects that our residents can see around the city happening now. Just so the changes in the actual appropriations budget since August 4th, there was the addition of the police digital analysis tool for digital forensics. And that was following Councilor Campbell's amendment request. So that added additional $6,800 of one-time monies in the general fund. And then, as was stated earlier on Wednesday, council will continue its deliberations of other pending amendments. Budget strategies, this is a list of some of the innovations and long-term planning we've done. Rather than repeat those that I said from the hearing on last Monday, I'm going to just provide a new small example. Our Human Resources Department, understanding our cost of living lens, rather than accept the new contract with our existing employee assistance program, went out and negotiated new contracts with the new provider. It's actually going to be a better service, and it saves, and with some savings, $8,000. But I think in our lens here, every dollar counts. On that $8,000 is meaningful for us. Again, just highlighting some of the continued capital improvement projects that we are working on. Orange and Craig Signal Project and the Scott and Phillips Roundabout under construction. As well as the trail lighting along the Bitterroot Spur, and then we're setting the stage for the big federal project of South Avenue Safe Streets for All grant. We're setting the stage and under construction in many of our facilities. So we just got introduced to our 6 new firefighters, but Fire Station 6 we'll get into site, we believe we'll be in site control and look at design of a new fire station in FY26. We are winding down the construction of the new animal services facility expansion. At the Engen building, the former federal courthouse, we will begin abatement, the abatement process this year. Public Works announced its investments in the Broadway building there to be the more permanent home for Public Works, and make some investments there for Public Works and the neighborhood. And then we have those big ARPA grants that are helping phase 2 of our composting facility, which will help better control orders and protect our water quality. And then finally, Grant Creek Restoration Project is ongoing now, part of that whole build grant area. I'm going to restore the creek and create some more developable land in that area. So the following charts just show some allocation of where the resources are going. This is a new slide at the request of council last week, starting with at a little more granular level. This is the general fund alone, and this is the allocation of the expenses, $88.1 million in expenses in the general fund proposed for FY26, and you can see the biggest allocations of that, 63% of our general fund budget goes to public safety, and specifically police and fire, and you can see the allocation of the other departments. The next slide shows all of our tax-supported funds. So this is general fund, road and park districts, and the new fire levy. And this will show you how you change as we go from that $88 million to $121 million total tax-supported budget. And you can see how the allocation changes when you add public works, particularly Public Works and the Parks and Recreation funds. And then this is the allocation of all of our activities in all of our operating funds. So this brings in the big ones are the utilities, water, wastewater, stormwater utilities become part of this. Missoula Redevelopment Agency, Missoula Parking Commission. And you can see how the allocation of those goes. For a total budget of $200 million, you can see that in the lower right-hand corner. So I'm going to back up and talk a little bit about our financial condition and highlight that a little bit more and how we were making and the progress we're making. So in the general fund, we have a goal of having a reserve balance of 7% of ongoing revenues, or about $5.1 million. In FY25, we are growing that by about $1.3 million. So we made really great progress on getting to those cash reserve requirements. And in FY26, we're ending fund balance is projected to be $3.2 million. So that's meaningful progress. Toward our cash reserve policy, we're still about $2 million short of the total, but we are making great strides in that. And then just to back up one piece that's not on the slide, but I want to just mention also related, I've talked a lot over the years about our budget deficit. While that continues, we're making great progress there. We are moving the budget deficit from about a $3 million deficit to $2.6 million. It was a little bit more in the initial public hearing, but because of our tax values, came in a little bit less, but not a significant amount less. So I think the budget estimates that we made are standing, and so we are we're able to move that forward and still making really good progress related to our budget deficit. And then the property tax impact, the 3.5% that the mayor talked about when she delivered the executive budget is being able to stand, which is taxes from all districts and all sets, so general fund, fire levy, road and park districts. So all in, that is a 3.5% increase in property tax funds. Our definition of that, it's all of the it's the amount of new revenues we're going to see from property taxes, except for newly taxable property, which means new tax base. So new buildings, it's not a tax increase, it's new tax base. So that 3.5% is that piece that an existing property taxpayer would pay. However, here's the tax impact on a median home. Now, we've talked about the state legislature and the reforms they did related to property tax and taxable values. Assessment notices went out to property owners, and what we get is the sum total of all of those property assessment notices. And so what we've done here is make an estimate on a median value, assessed value of a home. Now, this isn't market value. This is the market value that the State Department of Revenue assigns to your house, and then calculates a taxable value based on that. So you can see here that market value in 2024 was $399,000. In this new appraisal cycle, that was a substantial increase to $507,000, over a 27% increase to a median home value in Missoula. However, the legislature did make significant changes to tax rates and homestead exemptions and tools to lower taxable values. So you can see that the taxable value in Missoula for the median home went down 21.7%. And then based on our budget and our new mill rate, the median home in Missoula will see a 14% decrease in its city taxes. Now that is that's the median. There's going to be property owners that will see more than 14%. There'll be property owners that see less. It's all based on the taxable value of the property and on your assessment notice. If that went up, you will see an increase. But most people did see a decrease. So we are seeing a tax decrease for many taxpayers in Missoula. I also want to say that this is a decrease in the city taxes. So this isn't talk about anything related to taxes that the county, the school districts, or Mountain Line might have. This is related to the city's portion of taxes that represent, about a third of a typical tax bill in Missoula. And then I will on Wednesday. Part of the budget presentations, we'll be going through some property tax trends, and we can talk a little bit more about how we are seeing the effects of the reappraisal and the new tax rates on residences and other types of properties, and we'll look at some trends on what's happening there. And so this chart is similar to last time. And this is the only adjustment here was the amount of new revenues we're receiving from taxes, and this is of the tax increase, $3.8 million. This is where that is being allocated specifically through the budget. So you see the large piece of that, over 79%, is going to wage increases for existing staff, and then the bar chart on the right shows the where that by department where those wages are going. And you can see, police, for example, is fairly sized because of the sizable CBA contract that was awarded. Next biggest category is that contractual increases, 14.8%. Those are things like utilities, rent, software contracts, those type of things that we're going to incur that expense. And so that's a large number of it. And then the remaining piece of the pie, which is only about 5%, is where the new requests and new things are going. So one of the things because of that, not maybe only a small portion of the property taxes are going to new requests, but we are able to do still a lot of work using non-property tax sources. So at the beginning of this, I talked about funding street maintenance businesses funded by gas tax. Public Works has been, particularly since our last pavement condition assessment, has been advocating for more maintenance funds, and this is a way we can, rather than use gas tax on projects, we're going to use those on maintenance, and we believe it's a better return on investment in the long run on our projects. We're going to fund the municipal election entirely paid from fund balance, $400,000. This is actually now likely overstated with the county's decision to place a measure on the ballot. They'll be paying a pro rata share of that, so that'll help that. And we'll still be able to meet city goals we have the base for Affordable Housing Trust Fund allocation, and we're hopeful that other resources such as closing on Riverfront Triangle or the MRA's affordable housing policies will start putting some more dollars into this. And then I mentioned our housing-focused approach, and we're continuing and evolving our positions. So, keeping a houseless operations specialist, and that new property engagement specialist that is being integral to helping people find permanent housing. So just the final steps, budget deliberations on Wednesday. And that will also include talking about some property tax trends and the fee resolutions that are being considered along with the budget. Public hearing will continue on August 18th, and then and hopefully budget adoption can happen on August 18th as well. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Bickle? Yes, Councillor Campbell, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Can we go back to the slide that showed the 3.5% tax increase distribution, the pie chart? Thank you. So I saw that. I go back to the original presentation from, was that a couple of weeks ago, and at that time it showed a $4.4 million increase. So can you explain where exactly, how we got that difference with the $600,000 and how we're making that up?
Yes. So the 4.4 million was the original estimate that we had related to pre-taxable values. The taxable values came in $3.8 million less. However, we were able to work some tools to keep the tax increase where we wanted to, using some we had some excess fund balance in our permissive medical levy fund that we use to not raise taxes as much. And Lee, maybe you can help me with this. But that's what it is. We actually received some less the valuation. We were under our estimates, but we had some. But in digging around, we were able to find some tools to use to try not to raise taxes more.
Follow up if I may.
Sure, you bet.
Then at the end of the day, just be clear, there's nothing that's being done that affects a greater or lower sum of the MRA remittance that we're asking for in this budget.
Yeah, that's correct. It's the same. Those numbers haven't changed. It's still the $3 million in revenues from MRA, 2/3 of which is remittance and about 1/3 is direct expenses, largely supporting debt service for eligible items.
Thank you.
Okay, you bet, absolutely. Councillor Carlino.
I was wondering where to find the fee increases for like Parks and Rec and everything. I don't see them attached to the resolutions on the agenda. Is there somewhere on the city website or a way to go over those fee increases?
Yeah, we are in the process of putting that information together. And so as soon as it's ready, many of those can be put on the website, and we'll get those up as soon as we can. It's, if you recall, we had the presentation on the cost of services study related to development review, and that has been that's been a lot of work to try to get those, and we've been in a 2-week scramble to put those together. And so that's all coming, and we'll have that full presentation on that on Wednesday.
You bet. Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Sherrill.
I just wanted to add for Daniel that that's why we're doing an afternoon meeting, just because they're still working on it, and that will be presented at that time in budget and finance at the afternoon session on Wednesday.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Any additional questions? Okay. Not seeing any additional questions from council. The main motions are on the floor for those motions 5.1 to 5.6. And so we'll go ahead and turn this over to public comment. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on the fiscal year 26 proposed budget, items 5.1 through 5.6 on the agenda? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody in the audience. Is there anybody online? Anybody online wishing to make public comment on the city budget proposal? All right, not seeing any public comment online either. Then this comes back to council for any council comments. Any council comments? Okay. All right, not seeing any council comments. We're not taking a vote tonight, so that does wrap up this agenda item. Again, there'll be more conversation during Wednesday's committee meetings. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Bickle. Thank you, Lee. Lee Griffin, who is online. Thank you. Okay. We have no new business this evening, and we will now move on to the consent agenda. I know I've got one item that has been requested for separation. Councilor Vasika would like to separate item 8.4. So we're going to go ahead and separate that item right from the beginning and let folks know that that will happen. But before we get started here, if you'll go ahead and Ms. Wilding, if you'll show the consent agenda on screen and read each item, including 8.4, for those that are watching on MCAT.
Okay, items on the consent agenda. Approve accounts payable for checks dated August 12th, 2025 in the amount of $3,058,958.72. Approve the mayor to sign the contract amendment to the existing professional service agreement with Tree Fellows LLC for the amount totaling $37,753.80 for additional forestry work on the city's Mount Jumbo Preserve in Marshall Canyon. Authorize the mayor to sign the Poverello Center at 1010 West Broadway City MDT Maintenance Agreement. Adopt a resolution levying a special assessment and tax upon property for annual weed assessment to reimburse the city for hazardous vegetation and nuanced weed cut orders performed in FY 2025, totaling $819.72, pursuant to Section 7-22-4101, Montana Code Annotated, and Section 8.40.040, Missoula Municipal Code. Adopt a resolution levying a special assessment on tax upon property for annual sidewalk snow removal assessment to reimburse the city for snow removal performed in winter 2024 to 2025 in the total amount of $351.69 pursuant to sections 12.16.030 and 12.16.040 Missoula Municipal Code. Appointing Alex Marsh as a regular member of the Local Emergency Planning Committee with a term beginning immediately and expiring December 31, 2026.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Wilding. Any public comment on items on the consent agenda this evening? I'm not seeing anybody in the room. Anybody online? Public comment on the consent agenda. Okay. Are there any counselors that wish to separate any other item from the consent agenda? Okay. I'm not seeing any. Then Ms. Wilding, we'll go ahead and we'll take a voice vote on items 8.1 through 8.3 and then again 8.5, leaving 8.4 for a separate vote. And we'll do that in two votes because there are two motions for 8.4. So again, the consent agenda, 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, and 8.5, and we can do that in a voice vote, please.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? That passes.
All right, thank you very much. And then item 8.4, we're going to go ahead and separate that. In preference to hear those or vote on those motions separately, and because these are separated, we will do a roll call vote. And Councilor Vasika, you said you did not need to speak to these, so we'll just go ahead and do the roll call vote. So Ms. Welding will do the roll call vote, starting with the first motion, please, under 8.4.
Okay, roll call vote for 8.4, adopt a resolution levying a special assessment on tax upon property for annual weed assessments to reimburse the city for hazardous vegetation and nuanced weed cut orders performed in FY 2025, totaling $819.72 pursuant section 7-22-410 Montana Code annotated and section 8.41.040 Missoula Municipal Code. Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Campbell,
No.
Carlino,
Yes.
Farmer,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Melson,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika.
No.
That motion passes.
Thank you. Next motion on 8.4, please.
Second. Our next motion, adopt a resolution levying a special assessment and tax upon property for annual sidewalk snow removal assessment to reimburse the city for snow removal performed in winter 2024 to 2025 in the total amount of $351.69 pursuant to sections 12.16.030 and 12.16.040 Missoula Municipal Code. Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Carlino,
Yes.
Farmer,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Melson,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika.
Yes.
That passes.
Okay, thank you all very much. That does wrap up the items on the consent agenda this evening. We'll now move on to item 9, regular business. There is one committee report on our regular business, and that's 9.1.c, Committee of the Whole Committee Report. And this is 91CB, change to Council Rule 21C. The original the sponsors are Councilor Campbell and Councilor Vasika. And I do see that the recommended motion here, it did pass in committee. It appears that there's voting to have a corrective cleanup on a number of different rules here and take no further action on Rule 21C amendment. So, yes, please, President Cheryl.
Yeah, I just want to, so this was a motion that was not brought for, part of it was brought forward by Counselor Campbell and Vasika. It was amended on the floor and we voted on it at that time. So I just want to be clear for kind of the record of what happened on Wednesday, but I'm happy to, unless you want to take questions first, I'm happy to just get us started on this.
If you would, please.
Okay, so I'm going to, I guess I'm recommending that we vote to approve corrective cleanup changes to City Council Rule 13, 21, and 27, and take no further action on Rule 21C amendment. That is the recommended motion from committee on Wednesday.
Okay, so motions on the floor, it's recommended do pass, and noting here that this does require 2/3 majority of members elected to pass these rule changes. Are there any questions from council? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Is there any public comment this evening? Not seeing any public comment on this agenda item. How about online? I'm not seeing any public comment online. Brings it back to City Council for any comments, any council comments. Councilor Campbell.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, so here we are with this motion, ironically, 10 days after his first given public notice, which is the way council should work. I appreciate that we're cleaning up and making the corrective cosmetic changes. I mean, certainly they need to be done, but disappointed that we're not going to have apparently any just real discussion or consideration of my main amendment, which is to hone in council members' ability to bring a matter before this body at 6 p.m. on Monday night without any committee deliberation, without any real notice that could possibly take place over the course of a weekend, something noticed by quote unquote urgency, and the language exists now to be able to bring it in on a Monday, 72 hours later, over a weekend, you know, basically for all intents and purposes in terms of public notification, it's basically done under cover of darkness. I mean, there's no real ability for anyone to make any meaningful comment on matters like this over the course of a weekend. Media coverage over the course of 72 hours, particularly over the weekend, limited at best. And then, you know, you have City Hall and government facilities closed during most of that notification time. And I think I've made my case from committee from Wednesday that, you know, we've had some recent business, as, you know, Councilwoman Anderson wanted to relate to, with actions taken using this urgent business clause, very subjective as it exists now, but I've demonstrated, I think successfully, each of those instances, be it with the pride flag, where there was in fact, you know, time to bring this matter before committee, with it being signed by Governor Gianforte on May 13th. There's plenty of room to bring it forward, but, you know, I feel it was played out that way for political reasons. It's election season. I know we want to be, you know, the first to take the bite of that apple, you know, get ahead of Butte and Bozeman and all of that. So, you know, congratulations there. Then we had some other amendments dealing with, you know, one of them dealing with the forest or public lands to get our Congress to be in support of not selling off public lands. And that was something I actually voted in favor for. But I had concerns with the way it was brought before council as, again, an urgent item. When you look at the timing on that, Mike Lee introduced it at a time that would have allowed it, you know, very quickly to be scheduled for a committee and then brought before council before a final vote on President Trump's big, beautiful bill. So there's opportunity there. And interestingly enough, there's been absolutely no discussion. You know, we asked our elected delegation or congressional delegation not to sell public lands. Congressman Zinke did in fact get that removed from the overall spending bill, the big, beautiful bill. And all of our delegation was behind it. There's been absolutely no discussion at all in offering, you know, a memorandum or word of thanks to our congressional delegation for doing this, and Congressman Zinke for hanging up the efforts for removing public lands. But I digress. The third one, Medicare, and this is a discussion going back to the first part of May as far as possible cuts to Medicare and SNAP. Again, where was the urgency? To me, these are all a political usage of that language within 21C, and I merely want to go in and clean it up to allow for the possibility, reasonable possibility of, if there are true bona fide emergency actions, working with the city attorney to revamp the language that would allow for, the urgent business under Rule 27, emergency ordinances, that wasn't going to be touched at all. It allowed for matters dealing with fiscal matters, funding, contracts that mayor had to sign that would have affected that one bit. There was comment brought up during committee regarding COVID and going back to the COVID emergency in 2020 and, having time to do a bit of research on that. There was nothing this body did that I could see regarding Rule 21C that had to come up and had to be done within a weekend. Everything that was done from COVID, you go back to March of 2020, when all these declarations were made from county commission to our late mayor. Most of that was done all of that was done at the executive level. The only thing else that was done that was substantive was from the health department, with the regulations on businesses and masking and number of people and social distancing and all that came from the health department. You go back to last July, there was nothing within this body that was done at a council level requiring the use of 21C. Again, that was a declarative action taken by the mayor for that storm event last July. So, I feel, we're quashing discussion on this particular item, ironically properly noticed just for, again, an overall card to be able to pull out from time to time for political purposes, to bring forth business that has no real true urgency whatsoever. So I'm disappointed that, once again, we're dealing with council rule change where, we're not even going to entertain discussion on it. We're just going to exclude it. And I hope, sometime in the near future, perhaps it's going to be addressed again. I suspect, we're going to see other, political gamesmanship with use of 21C, using the urgent business clause, very subjective. So I guess that's where I stand.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Jordan.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't be here during committee when this was discussed, and I largely agree with everything Councillor Campbell just mentioned. I was deeply hurt by not being allowed to co-sponsor the Pride Flag resolution. There was time to collaborate and to get my name on that, and I think other folks probably would have liked their name on that as well because it was really important to all of us for different reasons. And this rule was used to exclude. And I find it just, it's a hard pill to swallow when a couple of us get accused of not being inclusive, but when there are requests to be included, we are denied, and this rule was used to make sure that that happened. There, as Mr. Campbell said, was no urgency. We had the time to hear these in committee, to have a robust debate, to allow public comment, to seek changes to with amendments. But for rules that were outside of half of City Council's hands, it was decided that the rest of us didn't get to participate. I do think Bob is right that we're going to see some political gaming closer to election season. I think we've already seen it. And if we're going to be a united front, then we need to be a united front, and we need to make sure that we are careful to be inclusive when folks want to be included, which was definitely the case for the Pride Flag resolution. Again, that hurt. There's so many people in my life who are affected by us using the flag to make a statement, and I didn't get to be a part of it, and I wanted to be. I also am frustrated again that this affects the minority, and the majority is going to vote in favor of what they can do to control the narrative. and it's frustrating. So I wish I could have been there for the original conversation. Bob and Sandy, I'm glad you brought this forward. I think it does make us more transparent. And, you know, the whole point of why we are all on city council is to represent our constituents and to have robust conversations on the council floor so that our constituents can hear their concerns being expressed. And by not allowing these amendments that Bob and Sandy brought forward, we're going to continue to allow a few folks to control the narrative and to restrict that public comment and that public process that does benefit the voting bloc, but not the people who have smaller representations who desperately need to have a voice at the table. So yeah, again, thank you for bringing it forward. I'm not surprised it got tabled. And I'm exceptionally disappointed, but I'll be voting for whatever I can in favor of whatever I can tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan. Councillor Vasika.
Thanks. Yeah, essentially ditto to everything that Bob said, and a lot ditto to what Kristen said. It has been incredibly frustrating to see some of our rules being used for political posturing, I guess. With the rules that we were presenting, Bob and I, that with the new language that we were presenting was essentially just changing urgent to emergency. And there were some arguments during our discussion, our very brief discussion on Wednesday, before the ball got moving with the motion of the having the technicalities and wording changed for just kind of cleanup, and then the main part of what we were presenting is just not going to be discussed. So that's incredibly frustrating, and so that's the reason why I'm going to be voting no. But there was some discussion last Wednesday about how there are some budgetary items or some deadlines, or with a big beautiful bill vote, some of those things that were coming forward, some of those resolutions that we wanted Congress to support. Those had actual legitimate deadlines that made sense, that under our new rules, they could have been proposed with the, I guess, the weekend wonder rule. So we're not trying to make it so that nothing can be presented as a weekend wonder. I understand emergencies happen. I understand that things happen. But for just essentially all this pushback from changing urgent to emergency and not wanting to do that, kind of just goes to show that that this body wants to have a more leniency on what things that they can put forward with posturing and what they do want to hide from public comment. And I know I'm going to get some pushback with that, and we're not deliberately keeping the public not involved, but that's exactly what it feels like what this body is doing. And I think that we should make every effort that we can to be as transparent and allow as much public comment as we possibly can. And with this moving forward in the way that it did, I don't feel like that's happening. So even though this is something that I sponsored, I'm not going to be voting in favor of it because the meat of what we're sponsoring wasn't even really discussed. So I'm unhappy with that. I'm not going to be in favor of this, even though I do believe that these a lot of the technical changes do need to happen. So that's my reasoning with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vasika. Councillor Carlino.
Thanks. Yeah, you know, if something's not an emergency, I do think it makes sense to, you know, give proper public notice like we do for most things. And I mostly am just frustrated that we weren't able to vote on the actual rule change that these council members brought forward. And then the vote that came out of committee didn't pass with 2/3. So I'd like to get back to what this rule change was actually about in the first place. And I just wanted to move to amend that we put on the floor a motion to amend this back to the original rule changes that Councilwoman Vaseka and Councilman Campbell brought forward.
Okay. So there is an amendment on the floor to the recommended motion. And any questions for Councillor Carlino on that amendment? Any questions from council on that amendment? Councillor Jones?
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt. I do not have the ability to raise my hand. I don't know if I need to be upgraded to a presenter, but I do have a question. If you are willing to call on me when the time is right.
Absolutely, please. Councillor Jones, I see your hands raised first. That was your question? Okay, yeah, Councillor Anderson, please, go right ahead.
Thanks so much. I just want to clarify what exactly the amendment is on this motion, so that there's 4 parts to the motion that was brought forward. So if Mr. Carlino could specifically say what it is that he is amending the new motion to read as.
Yeah, it's on maybe it'd be easiest if I shared my screen, but basically I'm moving to amend that we just vote on what Councilwoman Vaseka and Councilman Campbell originally brought forward. Here it is on the Committee of the Whole schedule. It was just the whole proposal that they brought forward. It got changed. Well, in committee, the motion that passed was to take no further action on the Rule 21C amendment, which is kind of like the bulk of this. I could pass it over to the sponsors if that's easier too, but basically my amendment is just to go back to what they originally proposed.
Okay. The amendment language that was originally introduced on for committee for adopting change 21C is on screen. Any additional questions from council members on the amendment? Councilor Jones.
And I just want to clarify that this is just a majority vote on the amendment, not 8 out of 12 or 2/3.
I do believe that's correct. Mr. Sudbury, is that correct? This is a majority vote on the amendment because this is an amendment to the motion, not the actual rule change. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Any amendments just require a majority vote. The final vote that happens on whatever the final proposal will need to be passed by 2/3 of all city council because it's an amendment to the rules.
The clarification you were looking for?
Yes, and I have a comment when it's appropriate.
Okay, great, thank you. So right now we are asking questions in regards to the amendment. Again, this amendment only requires a majority vote this evening, not a 2/3 vote for the amendment. Just for the amendment to the motion. Okay. Did we take public comment? No, we did not. Oh, Councilor Cheryl.
Just so I feel like we need to all be really clear about what we're voting on here. So if we vote for his amendment, then we're voting yes or no on what was originally brought forward on Wednesday, correct?
You are voting to change it back, exactly.
To change it back. And then we will do a vote on whether we want to pass it or not. So I think that's important that maybe everyone's tracking that and I was not, but we vote whether we want to change it back or not.
That's correct.
Change it back, and then we vote on whether we like the amendment or the motion that was originally proposed by Mr. Campbell and Ms. Vaseka.
Thank you for clarifying.
2 votes.
Okay.
Two votes here. Okay.
2 votes,
Thank you.
exactly. So this first vote will be on the amendment as proposed by Councilor Carlino. First, we'll ask if there's any comment from the public on this amendment, specific to the amendment. Not seeing any in the room. Come on up.
McKay, Montana. It's not too often we get to see a committee ran through the city council ringer.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Montana. All right, any other public comment? Not seeing any. How about members of the public online that wish to make comment on this amendment specifically? Okay, I'm not seeing any comments from the public on this amendment. So now we'll bring it back to council comments on this amendment. And I see Councilor Nugent, your hand is raised.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. I think, however people want to vote is fine. And the rules are what the council sets them to be. My comments are, and they really work for both this amendment and the motion in general. I think a couple things that you put out there. Whether something's heard in committee or not is irrelevant to who sponsors it. Like, if somebody turns in a referral and they're the only person who is the sponsor and it's heard in committee, we don't add sponsors. So that, I don't understand what that comment is about, but I mean, if we're going to call out political posturing or whatever the case may be. I think that's a little bit misleading. Any council member can request something go to committee or send to committee, and if somebody objects, it's a simple majority that agrees. So if council wanted to, on any item on the new agenda, we could choose to send it to committee. That's already within our rules. Everything about our new business rules as they are right now are in line with Montana law. And I think that all of these comments that are implying something beyond that, I think, are really unfortunate because it gives a perception that somehow we're not meeting the law, and we absolutely 100% are. I think that there was some reference made to timing and not being urgent issues, if I recall right. The pride flag amendment or conversation was partly urgent because if it had gone to committee and taken multiple weeks, it would have been after school was out. And I think that that was part of the reason Ms. Savage brought it forward. I think she spoke to it that night. She's welcome to speak to it more. I'm just trying to restate what the rationale that we were told the night of. As far as the sending the message of if you support it or not, people could just look at the votes that night and know what council members stood with that decision, what council members did not. So I'm not sure that I see that correlation either. Those are opinions, they're not facts. And I think that we need to be careful changing our rules when things don't go our way. And I understand that that's easy for me to say, that there are many times where I vote with a large group, but there are also times where I have been on the losing side of things, and that's democracy. I mean, it's straightforward democracy. And for so many people who often talk about, skirting democracy, like what you're trying to do now is make it harder for elected representatives to do something by majority. So I think that the motion that was made in committee, which is perfectly legal, follows all rules. It was a alternative motion made to direct council to take action on an item that was publicly noticed. There's absolutely nothing that doesn't meet legal standard about it. And it's just interesting to me that because people don't like it, they want to go change the rules. But if you don't like it, get 6 or 7 of your council members to vote against it. That's just the way democracy works. So my recommendation to you all, whether you want to take it or not, would be that we vote down this amendment and then we move forward with the cleanup, because it was brought to our attention that there were some things that needed to be cleaned up. And if we don't move that forward, we just have to have this rules conversation again. And I think we've talked about rules more in these last 2 years than we usually do. And for better or worse, that's where we're at. So.
Thank you, Councillor Nugent. Councillor Jones.
My comments also go to this amendment as well as to the main motion, so I'll just speak once. I think we have used the new business item appropriately, and there are channels people have to go through to get it onto new business, and we've also just come through a fast and furious legislative session with all sorts of stuff coming at us from the legislature, as well as governor signing, governor vetoing, all sorts of different things, while at the same time we have a brand new administration in Washington, D.C. passing all sorts of things left and right. So yes, it has been used in the past 6 months for good reason, because there's a lot going on right now. So I don't see any problem with that. I think folks have the chance to vote against it if they don't like it on the floor, and that's the important point. I will not vote to change our rule about how things get onto new business, because frankly, it's bad policy to narrow ourselves down when we need to be able to pivot at times and act more quickly. It was my recollection, Mr. Campbell, that we had to do a lot of things during COVID that were quickly done. And if we use new business or not, there were every tool possible we were using because it was such an intense time. I have no idea what's coming next in this world. We're living in an unprecedented era where all sorts of change is happening rapidly in so many different sectors. So the last thing I'm going to do as a legislator on this body is change a rule to narrow down our ability to respond nimbly and quickly in the future if we need be. So that's why I'm voting against it, and I've heard an awful lot of talk about how we're not talking about the substance of what you brought. I think we're talking a ton about the substance of what was brought with this referral. The motion is a little bit different than what we typically use, but the substance is definitely being discussed a lot. So I want my thoughts on this clear on the record, because just because we're voting it down doesn't mean that we aren't voting it down for good reasons. If it's bad policy, it's bad policy, and I'm going to vote it down. And that's what I think in this situation. So I will leave it at that. But I think, I think it's more a question of working through things, bringing the support to get things through, instead of changing the rules.
Thank you, Counselor Jones. Counselor Jordan.
Thank you. I think there's a lot of conflating happening at the moment. Just because something's legal doesn't mean it's ethical. And that's, I've got a bunch of one-liners from my MPA program. That's another one. Things can be legal and not ethical. And we're conflating this issue by saying the rule that Bob and Sandy brought forward is going to stymie the political process and legislative process. It's not at all. It's actually going to mean that we can still keep our emergency status. It was seeking clarification on terminology. And it was seeking to ensure that every one of us have a chance to consider items in the same amount of time that y'all did. I mean, I found out that proposal, the pride flag proposal, been worked on for a week. Never was I called, never was I invited. Once I found out it had been going on, I asked to collaborate and was told absolutely not. Ms. Savage wanted to co-sponsor it by herself because it was really important to her because of her kid and her professional work. And I think, what about the rest of us? So please stop complaining. Please stop gaslighting us. We are telling you that this matters to us, and you're telling us that it doesn't matter to us and that it shouldn't matter to us. That's gaslighting. This is not ethical. And we've asked for a simple change to make sure that all of us can be well informed and organize our thoughts. And you're telling us no. And this is not ethical.
Thank you, Counselor Jordan. Counselor Savage.
Thank you. I did want to speak just briefly to the pride flag amendment or the pride flag resolution. So I do work at the public schools. I'm the communications officer for Missoula County Public Schools. I work directly with the superintendent. The reason that it was urgent, I get it that Gianforte had signed it a month ago. I totally understand that. But the week before we brought it to the floor, the superintendent had sent out an email to all teachers telling them to take the pride flag down out of the classrooms. That's why it was urgent. It was urgent because I had been getting a lot of communication from people within that community, administrators and otherwise, teachers, students, families that were saying that that was demoralizing for kids. That's why I brought it. That's why it came before new business. That's why I didn't go to committee, because school was going to be out in like a week and a half, something like that. I can't totally remember the dates, but that was the point. The other point is it was a personal issue for me as well. So, I mean, I said that on the record that night, and I still hold true to that. We had past drafts around for about a week. As soon as the superintendent's email went out, several counselors and I started talking about it, talking about what we could do. We spent the week researching what Boise had done, researching what Salt Lake had done. We ran it back and forth through our legal counsel. We worked very hard on it. We edited it. We tried to make sure that it was very inclusive of all pride flags, all the things. I mean, we went back and forth. And frankly, we did that work. And I say we, I did that work with people that I trusted and people who have shown themselves to be trustworthy counselors. So I did not come to you, Ms. Jordan, because you have not proven to me that you are a trustworthy colleague. And so when you asked me at the 11th hour, after I had already turned in the amendment to Claire, after I had already worked on it for a week to sign on, I said no. And the reason I said no is because we had spent a ton of time. We had had lots of conversations among 4 or 5 of us about who was going to bring this forward. And given my personal connection and where I worked, we all kind of came to the conclusion I would bring it forward. So that is why no one called you. It is not because we were trying to be exclusive. It was because you have been known to sabotage. You have been known to slam your computer in this chamber and tell us all to expletive off. You have yelled at more than one of us on numerous occasions, over the phone, in person. People have seen it. Police officers have seen it. It is something that is very clear to me that you are not a collaborative partner. That is why I did not come to you. So, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Savage. I'll remind folks that we are on the amendment. However, if you wish to speak to the larger amendment, I assume that you may not want to later. That's great. Okay, back to next comment. Counselor Cheryl.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to say in general, like, there are all sorts of opportunities to show your support on amendments or on things that are brought forward. You don't necessarily have to have your name on those to show support on the floor. So I'm going to comment, I guess, on the amendment. So, you know, I'm going to actually vote for the amendment to go back to the original language. But then when that original language is voted on, I'm going to vote no. And so this is why I was trying to clarify. And that is how I had planned to vote on Wednesday. I'm going to vote no on the cleanup for a couple of reasons. I'm going to or vote to go back to the original language for a couple of reasons, because I voted no on what was brought forward on Wednesday, because it's not just cleanups, but it's also the no further action. And I would tell all my colleagues that the clerks and I have been working on a number of cleanups to our council rules that we are bringing forward, and we will bring forward before the end of this year. Most of them are kind of nothing. Some of them are just kind of to be in line with what we currently do. As you see, we have council people that are remote, and our old rules, it really didn't take that into account. This should be a flexible job. So we want to write some language, and I am actually happy to collaborate with whoever wants to help me on some of that language, but to make it more in line with what we're doing. So I just want to say that. So the cleanup piece doesn't speak to me, because we've got a lot of cleanups, and if those were brought forward with me previously, we would have just incorporated them, and I've asked the clerks to incorporate those cleanups if this does not pass tonight. So those will be incorporated in the package that is brought before the end of the year. The reason that I will be voting, so I will vote to go back to the original one. So I will vote for Mr. Carlino's amendment for that reason. But when we vote on what was on the floor, I'm going to vote against it, and I'm going to vote against it for a couple reasons. 95, I think, percent are pretty darn close of the new business items that are brought to us are brought by staff, because they need to happen, and they need to happen urgently, or there is some reason, lots of different reasons that come up. We need that flexibility. Sometimes, like earlier in July, we had 2 weeks off. I mean, stuff comes up. This is a city. There are things that need to happen. We also have situations like what Ms. Savage just detailed, and bringing something forward that has really just been put on the radar of people that are going to affect our citizens in a negative way. I'm happy to have supported that new business item. I would do it again. So thank you, Ms. Savage, for bringing that forward and bringing it forward in quick order. I support it as well, and my name was not on it. So I just want to say that. You know, we have been here until 3 a.m. before. I hope tonight's not one of those nights. But we have, and we may be again. And those are the things we do on a Monday night sometimes, right? I mean, sometimes if a new business item comes and we need to dig in and we need to decide that on a Monday night, we stay here, right? We can also vote to send it back to committee. We can also vote it down. You know, we can also amend it. So, I mean, all these things, we have the power as a body to do that. So, you know, when things are urgent, they're urgent, and they're urgent for lots of different reasons. And I don't think that we can predict in the world what those reasons are going to be and how those things are going to come forward. And I would say that they may come forward on something that you care about deeply, Mr. Campbell, Ms. Vasika. You know, they may come forward on something that both of us, you know, cross over and care about deeply on. So, I'm not going to be voting for the original thing that was brought forward to limit new business on Monday night. I think we are a body that needs to move efficiently, and that is a big criticism of government in general. So, but I am going to vote to go back to the amendment because I just want to vote on it, move it forward, and I want to clean up the language as was proposed by my ward mate, Mr. Nugent. I want to clean that up in the big package of all sorts of these and those and ands and, different reference points that we've been working on. So regardless of what happens tonight, I think you should anticipate seeing that in the future.
Thank you, President Cheryl, and thank you and other council members that continue to work on cleanup and making of the council rules. All right, next council comment is Councilor Campbell on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, I'm going to be in support of Councilmember Carlino's amendment on this to bring this main motion back. But look, so I'm going to comment on something that Councilman Nugent commented on when this amendment was brought out, which was the notion that that the business we have now and the way we conduct in this particular council role falls within state law. Well, of course it does. I mean, I'm not going to have illegal council rules. I think it just naturally follows. Everything in council rules is legal until some attorney someplace tells us it isn't, or the legislature changes the law or what have you. But at the end of the day, shouldn't we strive to be better than that? Shouldn't we strive to be doing more than the minimum the legislature says or the state Montana code says? You could have just this much time between this day and that day to get notice to the public. Let's do better. Let's do better on behalf of our constituents, on behalf of the people we serve, and let's do better in terms of transparency. Let's do better in terms of accountability and shed as much sunshine, sunshine that used to be a thing, I don't know, but give folks the opportunity to examine what it is we bring before this body. And part of that is, having committees and being able to parse those things out and be able to get exposure and have time to deliberate these things, have time for public coming and comment. And, at the end of the day, like we're doing today is again, day 10 of this process, still the matter one way or the other. If it's up or down, I mean, so be it. But, at very minimum, with this amendment, it's getting the exposure it deserves. And so it should be with everything else. I think the way I drafted the amendment allows for reasonable emergencies, and it's just a shame that, we're still going to have so much subjectivity in this to where, at a whim, we could put something in, declare an emergency or an urgency, and if it happens to coincide with the political thought of a particular committee chair, then, that's going to get placed on council business with 72 hours notice. Other things, maybe not. Myself, some of my colleagues here are a minority politic here on this body, and, when I bring something up to a committee chair from the core progressive body that is Missoula City Council, and, we'll get put on council business on 72 hours notice. I don't know. I kind of think not, but be as it may, I guess that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Campbell and Councilor Anderson.
Thanks so much, Madam Mayor. I logged out and logged back in and figured out how that now I can raise my hand. I am not going to be supporting the motion or the amendment by Mr. Carlino, and I supported the motion that Mr. Nugent brought forward last week. And I just can't help but sit here and listen to the irony of the objections for why we shouldn't vote this down or why we need this amendment. They are all political. You didn't like various things, the stances they took, the people that we were calling out, were not included, weren't included. Those are all subjective. And I think but you're trying to hang that on, well, this doesn't give proper notice for public comments and things like that. We have one of the most robust processes in the state. So we are setting the bar in terms of public comment, public participation. There are no other of the big sevens that do, Wednesday committee meetings. They do, because they don't have the same system of government we have. So they're not voting on contracts and various things. And so to basically try to say that we need to be doing better when we are far and above setting the standard, I just can't agree with. And, the reasons for the various things that were brought forward, I mean, Councilman Savage laid it out very perfectly in terms of the timing of that. I'm sorry you do not politically align with that, but the majority of council did. And you could, and had it been truly egregious, voting to send or making a motion to sending it back to committee to continue to have further discussion is absolutely within the purview of any member on council. You just need to get the majority of your council members to go with you to say, yes, I see where this is an egregious use of whatever the, bringing this forward in the time manner. A bill to get through Congress, because several of the instances that we're referencing are sort of voting or saying our opinion of how we think various pieces of federal legislation would affect our constituents and voicing our concerns and raising our voice to either, support or condemn it. I mean, a piece of legislation through Congress can either be passed in days or years. And so to align all of that only with when it gets introduced versus, hey, we want to bring attention to the fact that it is being scheduled for a vote is an entirely different thing. And neither of any of these resolutions that were highlighted committed resources of the city, took staff time and dedicated it to a specific thing. And so if that had been the case and you felt like we were rushing something, then that would have been a very appropriate thing to say back to committee and be like, hey, how does this affect the budget? How does this affect workflow? How does this affect staff time? But none of these things fall into that category. And we were, notice of when things were being voted on, school ending, letters going out from the superintendent. We need to have the flexibility to be able to, act in that and, and to say all the reasons to say, well, we need to have this tool are not any based in substance. And, we have had multiple budget meetings here and on a $200 million budget, and we are holding it last week and this week and next week, and we haven't had any public comment on it. So I think we're getting things conflated here, and I understand that I am in the majority of council, but I'm also one of the people who was very vocal about making sure that there was minority representation with making sure Ms. Vasica was reappointed. So, it's not just majority and minority, it's, kind of taking the moments and standing up for what's right. And the fact that, you're concerned that there's going to be more political, gamesmanship when the entire reason for this seems fairly political to me, I think is, a little bit laughable at this point. So, that's all I have to say on that. So I will be voting no on the amendment and yes on the motion as brought by Mr. Nugent.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Vasica.
Thank you. I just want it to be on the record that things don't go my way a lot. And so my reasoning for bringing this forward is not because I'm not happy with how some votes have gone in the past. I just don't like the, 72 hours and just not, I don't like things like Bob nicknamed it the weekend wonders, public notice on Friday and then over the weekend and then on Monday night. I just feel like the citizens need more time, especially we're in Montana, people are out of service on the weekends. That's my main reason why bringing this forward. Because like I said, things don't go my way a lot, and I'm usually totally fine with it. I'm always totally fine with it. I mean, yeah, it's a bummer, but I'm not jumping to change my rules because something didn't go my way in the past. And I'm not saying anybody accused me of that. I just want the record to be shown that that's not why I brought it forward.
Thank you, Councillor Vasica and Councillor Farmer.
Thanks. I'll be quick. I just wanted to quickly comment on the amendment and also the original Rule 21C.
I won't be in favor of Mr. Carlino's amendment. I understand the intent of it, because it does seem a little different the way this was moved forward. But at this point, I do think that we've given enough air to this discussion that separating them, just feels like an inefficient use of our time. And I also will not be supporting the Rule 21C amendment. Looking at the way it's written, whether this is intended or not, the way it looks like is that we wouldn't be able to bring anything in new business unless it has a financial component. And I don't know if that's the intent or not, but that's the way I read it. And so in that case, there's a lot of things we would not be able to bring forward under new business. And I think that that would be a disservice to a future council. And we have to remember that we're writing these rules not for ourselves, but for future councils. And I think it would be a poor choice to limit them even more than we already are. So for those reasons, I won't support either of them.
Thank you for your comments. And Councilor Becerra.
I'll be super quick. I will be in support of the amendment, the Carlino amendment. Primarily because if the sponsors of the main motion want a response from this body on that proposal, I'll give it to them. And it'll be no, but I think I just want to make sure that it's clear. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Okay. Councilor Becerra was our last council comment, unless there's any other council comment in regards to the amendment as proposed. All right, not seeing any then. No additional council comments. So, Ms. Wilding, we will take a roll call vote on the amendment that Councilor Carlino brought forward, which was to revert to the original amendment. That original amendment language was under item 21C of City Council rules. Urgent items was scratched out, and it was language added, emergency actions under Rule 27 or actions involving unforeseen fiscal grant contracting matters needing immediate attention may be placed on City Council agenda. And then the other change was subject to Rule 13, closing of the agenda. So reverting back to the original amendment as proposed on the it was the 6th of August. So we will take a roll call vote on Mr. Carlino's amendment. Ms. Wilding, when you're ready.
Roll call vote, starting with Anderson,
No.
Becerra,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Carlino,
Yes.
Farmer,
No.
Jones,
No.
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
No.
Thank you. Jordan,
Yes.
Melson,
Yes.
Nugent,
No.
Savage,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika,
Yes.
sorry, that motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Wilding. And as is our preferred procedure, saying how many votes are in favor is always helpful. And I have tracked 8 yeses and 4 nos. Is that what you have for the record?
Yes, that is what I have for the record.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, so we now have Councilor Carlino's amendment has passed. So that means that we bring back the original Amendment 21C to vote on. So I'm going to turn it back over to President Cheryl.
Thanks. And I do not have that in front of me. So could you bring that up on the screen possibly? And then I could read it.
The original language is on the screen.
Can you read that okay? See that?
Okay, I need stronger. Okay, here, hold on, I'm gonna make it bigger. Okay, so, I recommend that we adopt, and I'm reading this, this is not my personal opinion here. Hold on. I'm sorry, it's moving around on me. Okay. Give me just a sec. Can you pull it up? I can't get it to. Okay. Adopt a change to Rule 21C of the City Council rules, changing urgent items to read emergency items or emergency actions, Rule 27, or actions involving unforeseen fiscal/grant/contracting matters needing immediate attention may be placed on the City Council agenda under new business without being first considered by committee. The mayor and/or committee chair must authorize the placement of such an item on the council agenda for new business to Rule 13, closing of the agenda.
Okay, thank you, President Cheryl. So motion is on the floor. This is a rule change. This does require 2/3 of the elected council to pass. And so it's been a long agenda item. Have we had public comment on this section? Okay, thanks for tracking that for me. I appreciate that. So are there any, before we go to public comment, now the motion's been made. Normally we ask questions, but there's been an opportunity for questions. We'll hear public comment and then we'll bring it back for any council comments. Hopefully it's not repetitive from what we heard earlier, if there was anything specific to this motion now. And yes, Councilor Cheryl.
And that sounds good to me. I would recommend, though, as purview of the chair of the council, that those, many of us have already made our comments about both motions. So I don't think that it would be in good order for us to comment again if we've already commented on the motion. I just think that is wasting council time.
I agree with you on that. I think we have heard everybody's opinion and thoughts on this issue. Thank you. Any public comment on the amendment 21C as proposed? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody in the audience with a desire for public comment. How about online? All right, not seeing any online. I do think we have definitely went round and round on this one. Let's go ahead and do a roll call vote, please.
Starting with Anderson,
No.
Becerra,
No.
Campbell,
Yes.
Carlino,
Yes.
Farmer,
No. No.
Jones,
No.
Jordan,
Yes.
Melson,
No.
Nugent,
Nope.
Savage,
No.
Cheryl,
No.
Basika,
Yes.
that is 4 yeses and 8 nos. That motion fails.
Okay, thank you all very much for the robust discussion. I think we are concluded with that agenda item. That does wrap up all of our committee reports, all of our regular business. We'll now move on to public comment on non-agenda items. Anybody from the public wishing to make comment on non-agenda items, please come on up.
BK, Montana. Let's do a summary on April 19th when I was arrested for trespass of the Poverello or the China Consulate, which would be the Johnson Center, in regards to March 16th, called Chomanism. March 30th, 23rd, and April 2nd, when one of the staff members themselves called me a chomo. His name is Robert. How the court system with the OPD, Office of Public Defender, is advocating the problems that the city has created through March 16th. of defamation and slander to who I am. I take it very personally. And the way I've been feeling the last several weeks has not been good. How that disease keeps manifesting for the deliciousness of whom I don't know. The fact of the matter also, Clearwater Credit Union is a financial sponsor with Blackfoot and Interstate Banks and a few others. What I did discover, there are a few others that are not financially supporting your wonderful, wonderful baby on Broadway, 1110 Broadway, to the fact of the matter. Mr. Nugent, what is the cost of police presence that are showing up to the problems in there?
Keep addressing me as the presiding officer. Thank you, Mr. Montana.
So forth. And you did also make a inquiry what it costs to clean up on Broadway. I'm so happy to see the condominium resorts are not going up there and so forth. And here's another one. There was supposed to be another individual here tonight with a specific case that he was brutally assaulted and documented by the police that he did not cause the assault and he did not defend himself. And the Poverello sticks him out for 30 days just for being assaulted. How much of that is still going on, and has it been going on 2 years in regards to myself? Those that find it amusing should be kicked off the bench, off the chair, off the council. And I see your amusement really well. So the fact of the matter, I haven't had my day in jury trial, and I'm not fit to bring in March 16th that created the problems that is advocated of March 23rd, March 30th, and especially April 2nd, which is advocated by a employee of the situation called chauvinism. I got one answer to the fact of the matter of this magnitude. His name is Joseph Stalin.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Montana. Any other members of the public wishing to come on down for comment? Come on up.
My name is Bob Moore. Listening to this budget exercise doesn't give me any encouragement that you're going to start running the city properly.
Mr. Moore, can you speak into the microphone a little bit? You can pull that closer to you just so we can make sure we hear your comments. Thank you.
Sorry, I have a sore.
That's okay.
My next point is the condition, in particular, safety of our streets. How in God's name you could allow Mary Jane going down toward Broadway past those brown condo apartments, whatever they are. I dare you to go down through the street going this way and pass a fire truck or a large cement truck or whatever. The road is not as wide as it should be. Anybody with a half of a brain knows that. When I was driving here tonight, there was a truck over here, a small truck. They were going the other way. They parked half on the street and half on the thing. Why do you allow that? One day, some kid's going to open the door before his parents does. The street is so narrow that it's going to die. When I first moved here several years ago, I spoke with the then mayor several times about another intersection right up the street from it, quarter of a mile. I told him somebody was going to die. They did. It took about 15 years, something like but the pedestrian died because of a sorry, dangerous intersection. The same thing is going to happen at Mary Jane and the other. They're just too small. When the accident at England and Flynn was built, wrecks started like crazy. That intersection should be a 4-way stop sign.
Thank you for your
I
comments
know
tonight,
y'all
Mr.
don't
Moore.
care, but that's what I think.
Any other members of the public wishing to make comment on items not on the agenda? Not seeing any in the room. How about online? Yes, Savannah, your hand is raised. Hopefully you can go ahead and unmute now. I'll go ahead and time you on this side for 3 minutes. When you're ready.
Okay, great. I unmuted. Savannah Gary, again, but I don't remember which council member said it earlier in this meeting, but there was a comment that members of the public had not made any comments on the budget despite the long review time. That is not true. I only attend the Monday meetings. I know you all have had many public hearings about the budget, but I just wanted to say there were at least 2 comments just last week at these Monday meetings. A fellow Missoulian commented last week about the police salary within the budget as it relates to homelessness. And I commented last week about how, as a layperson, much of the documentation around the budget is hard to follow. And I also thanked you all for working on the budget so much because it was thankless work. I want to repeat what I said about that, where much of the documentation is not accessible without speaking fluent legalese. And also, at least procedurally, it is hard to know when to comment on certain things because sometimes you're not taking comment on the budget, you are taking comment about when you are going to have the public hearing about the budget or a specific part of it. And you maybe would get more public comment if the documentation and procedure were easier to follow. That was all. I couldn't let I had to say something because that was just incorrect. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Geary. Appreciate your comments. Thank you for commenting. And any other members of the public online that wish to make public comment on items not on the agenda tonight? All right, all right. Ms. Schreiber, Carrie Schreiber, go right ahead.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for your work and the conversations tonight. A lot of important dynamics discussed, and I was quoted in the paper regarding my concern about using out-of-state developers to develop these city-owned properties, and I see that we do have 50 acres that are slated for that soon. Part of my reason for the concern for the out-of-state developers is that they would have less engagement with the community in regard for neighborhood and community needs. And perhaps this out-of-state developer will have the concern for park and livability for the neighborhood. And that is the main concern for myself and for the neighbors that have been working for a lot of months trying to bring awareness of our neighborhood needs. And I know that the Prost study supports the need for a neighborhood park in that area. So whoever we end up going with to develop the Southgate Crossing property, as long as those community needs are forefront, we will be satisfied. And if they're not forefront, we will be there to continue to advocate for ourselves. Thank you.
You bet. Ms. Schreiber, thank you. Thanks for your comment this evening. Any other members of the public online that wish to make comment on items not on the agenda? Okay. All right. I'm not seeing any additional members of the public wishing to make comment. And so that does wrap up then our public comment on non-agenda items. I'm going to go ahead and move on to general comments and communications from the mayor. I'll save you all from those tonight and move to general comments of city council members. I'm going to start with folks to my left. And so I'll start with Councillor Anderson. I know that you're online. Mr. Sudbury, did you have a comment you wish to make? Or is it just that you're off? I gotcha. Unmuted. No problem. No problem. Councillor Anderson, do you have any comments that you wish to make?
Yes, thanks so much, Madam Mayor. Just once again, congratulations to the new members of the fire department. I apologize for not being able to be there in person to congratulate them, but I saw that you all gave them a warm welcome, and just, you know, it cannot be stated enough how appreciative that we are that fine folks come and answer the call to public service, and that our community supported them with the passage of the levy. And I look forward to my fellow council members meeting the additional 20 firefighters who are in the process of working through their first year probationary period. They exemplify what it means to have the true call to public service in their heart and represent Missoula proudly. And I'm just continue to be so appreciative of them for your guys' support and for the community's support. And I just am going to continue to say that because it really does have an impact on people's lives. After the first 90 days of their training, they're on shift and they are having an impact. So, and then they have a lot of additional requirements put upon them on top of just their day-to-day being on shift to complete in their first year. And so we put out the best of the best, and we continue to do so. And I just can't let this opportunity go without adding that in one more time. Because it's not an insignificant thing. There are very few careers that take the level of hard work, dedication, sacrifice from both the folks doing it and their families as police and fire and first responders. So again, that just a thank you, and thank you to all of you for your continued support of the work that they're doing. So, and that will be all for me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. So well said. All right, Councillor Becerra, any comments this evening?
I will pass. Thank you.
Okay, you bet. And Councillor Sherrill?
Pass.
Okay, and Councillor Melson?
I'll also pass. Thank you.
All right, you bet. And Councillor Jordan, I'm just going around the horseshoe here. So I see your camera's off. Hopefully I'm not taking you by surprise there.
Is it off? I thought it was.
No,
on.
I'm
Anyway,
sorry. I
thank
meant
you.
on. I meant on. It is. Sorry to trick you.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to thank the public commenters for coming down. I know we've made it harder for people to come down and comment on items that aren't on the agenda, and it really struck a chord hearing the public comment about our budget process. I think we've heard a lot about our budget process, and I also think that we've made it harder for people to participate for a variety of reasons. And I appreciate the folks who come and stay through the end of meetings so that they can provide their public comment. And I'm sorry that it's been harder. I appreciate it when you come down, even when it's about me or things that I don't support or that you support, or even if it's something that we don't agree on. I just appreciate folks participating in the process, and I hope that we can hear more from you. Please email us, call us. We want to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan. And we're going around the horseshoe here, Councillor Vasika.
I will pass, thank you.
Sure, you bet. And Councillor Jones.
Sure, thanks. I did want to make some comments about the task force that there was some information in the press last week about the task force on the city's properties, the lands that the city owns. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that and just share some thoughts. So the city has done a great job, I think, of land banking through donations, through purchase, all sorts of different methods of land banking with the ultimate goal, for the most part, of creating more housing. but also serving other public good goals. But what we've found is it has been hard to turn some of those properties around, and we want to get them moving. So the mayor, to her credit, created a task force, basically bringing different folks in town together to discuss how best to move forward with some of these properties. So the mayor, some staff, a couple of city councilors, Mike Nugent and myself, the Missoula Economic Partnership folks, some bankers, some developers, and some affordable housing builders all got in a room for about 5 sessions to really brainstorm and talk through with some of these. I think it's 45 acres inclusive of numerous different properties that the city owns, and how best to move some of these forward. What are the goals? How best can we achieve some of those goals? So it was a really, really robust discussion. And I think the main takeaway was, I think we get ahead of ourselves sometimes, and with some of these properties, we want to accomplish a little bit too much. So the city has put a few too many, how should I put it, restrictions or demands on trying to work with developers to accomplish some of these goals. And sometimes when you just pile too much onto a plate, it doesn't work. And so when projects won't pencil out, then nothing happens. So we've got some properties that we're trying to get moving forward. And I think there were a lot of good ideas shared about how best to do that. I did also want to talk about, we've got the Riverfront Triangle, which that is moving forward, and knock on wood, I'm really excited to see that happen. And then Southgate Crossing, which is the big chunk of property behind Bob Ward's out by Southgate Mall. So that's a big process. The Southgate Crossing project is significant. I want to say it's 23 acres. Correct me if I'm wrong, but 23 acres for Southgate Crossing.
Well, it's currently the acreage itself, it's in the realm of around 10 acres of what we acquired. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
You bet.
So significant chunk back there, and there have been, Missoula Economic Partnership at the city's request has worked really hard to figure out the best way forward in terms of the goals to be met with this and the developers to work with. And so there are some, I think we're getting close on that. I do want to say that the city is not going to make a big announcement about this until the project is, we're at a point where it is baked enough to start communication. So I know some folks are, I would say, speculating, making assumptions about who the developer is, if they're in-state, out-of-state, whatever, just based on something that they see. And I would ask the community to just hold off and wait until we are ready to really roll it all out, because I'm sure you can all imagine when things aren't ready to be discussed in prime time, they can fall apart really easily. So this is an important project that I think could make a significant difference in that neighborhood, could provide housing, can have a park component, all sorts of good stuff. But I just hope people don't rush to conclusions or assumptions about the whole project, because I think good things are going to be coming from it.
Thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Jones, and for your participation on the task force. It was great to have your perspective, in particular as chair of the Housing and Redevelopment Committee. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, Councillor Farmer.
I will pass, thanks.
You bet. And Councillor Carlino.
Pass.
Okay. Councillor Campbell.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I hadn't intended on making any comments, but to answer Big K's question about the West Broadway cleanup, $20,415 is what that ran. And, I can't help but wonder, ironically, what Parks and Recreation could have done with that money. Perhaps they could have used it for professional services like survey work, engineering, geotechnical investigations that they're asking in their fiscal year 26 budget that was not funded. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell and Councillor Nugent.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. And I won't echo everything my colleague, Councilwoman Jones stated, but I did want to speak a little bit to the Mayor's City Lands Task Force and some of the media coverage last week. The mayor called together a diverse group of people representing nonprofit and profit nonprofit construction and banks, other people who kind of understand that bigger picture of how projects come together. And from my perspective, the charge we had was to give the mayor some framework to consider when she brings recommendations to council on what to do with land that the city owns. And I think that some people have missed that council still needs to vote, and they still need a 2/3 majority to sell any public land. So whatever we do, council gets to vote and have a say. But one of the things I said at that press event was we at the city, I think, have gotten ourselves into situations that make some of our goals almost impossible, because we're trying to solve every problem we have every time there's an opportunity. And I think some of what I'd like to see the mayor bring forward to us is instead of land banking and having land sit vacant, not as a park, not whatever, just vacant for years, not on the tax roll, to be more proactive and say, hey, if we were to move this piece of property, it will help us solve other problems down the road. It might start a ladder effect of a couple other solutions. That's good public business. That's not even just good business. That's good government trying to be proactive, because we don't have the resources to solve every problem by ourselves. We need partners. We need the private sector. We need the nonprofit housing developers to all be willing to come to the table. And if they aren't able to do that, then we aren't going to succeed on some of our biggest goals. And the reality is that the city doesn't have the resources at our disposal to do a lot of these things alone. The Riverfront Triangle is a great example. After the announcement of a partner on that project, I've seen lots of public comment that we should do all sorts of things, from completely make it a park to public arts center or all these things. But the reality is, if we don't have a private business there paying in taxes, there isn't any money in the MRA to do anything. And there's definitely not any money in the city budget. And so there's these factors that go so far beyond just, specific wants. We have to figure out how to do it. And sometimes the how to do it is we're going to say we're going to sit on it for years because down the road we've got a solution. But sometimes it might make sense to move this one along. I think there's a couple things out there that are frustrating to me. I think that the media that's covering kind of that process and talking about the Southgate crossing property, for instance, we should avoid reporting rumors as fact. The mayor has indicated that she will be bringing a recommendation forward soon. And until that happens, nothing is going to happen with that property. So that means, unless council signs off on it, there's nothing that's going to happen. And until the mayor is ready to tell us that publicly, I don't think people should assume. So I appreciate my colleague, Ms. Jones, pointing that out. I also think that it's important to note that many of the parcels of land that the city owns were either acquired by the city or the MRA for economic purposes, or they were given to the city with the hopes of achieving a goal, maybe housing or something of that nature. And I think that co-opting that with the greater public lands debate at the federal level is really disingenuous for so many reasons. But the reality is that those are individual parcels that are sitting vacant. So the Riverfront Triangle is not public land. It's a vacant lot in the city right now. And so I just would appreciate it if we stuck to the facts on some of these things and we don't project what is unknown. I know sometimes that's hard for all of us. Shifting gears from that, I do want to shout out, I think Western Montana Fair did a great job this week. I walked through the 4-H barns yesterday, and I'll tell you, 4-H just fascinates me. Our former colleague, Heidi West, is very involved in that. And these kids pour their heart and soul into these animals and they sell them. And so there's lots of tears in that booth on Sunday. But I will say that that's such an impressive commitment, and I'm just proud of those kids from all over the region that come and take part in the Western Montana Fair and the 4-H. And with that, I think I'm done.
All right. Well, Councilor Nugent, thank you very much for your comments and thank you for your participation as well on the task force. It was really good to have you as chair of the Land Use and Planning Committee. I think that it was one of a great opportunity for members of the public and other council members as well. I know you've had a chance likely already, but if not, there is a web page on our website. It's underneath the home, government, mayor, and then city lands. And there's quite a bit of information outlining the process, but also the prioritization framework, guiding principles, and guiding documents, just for your information. So with that, I will wrap up our council meeting here and adjourn us at 8:05 p.m. Thank you very much for coming down tonight.